Good morning, all. I thank you all for joining. So, welcome to Tech Inspire at another wonderful session. So, future proofing startups, legal essential. So, for welcoming our speaker, I invite Dr. Sarosh, Project Manager, Techin. Sir, you are on mute.
Oh, sorry for that. Thank you, Gigi. Welcome to all of our startups who have assembled here to this inspiring session, the third leg of Tech Inspire, where we delve into the topic future-proofing startups, legal essentials. One of the most important topics, and we have an apt speaker in Subhatra Mailswamy, who is the managing partner of AK Mailswamy Associates at Chennai. Before welcoming ma'am, I would like to give a brief to all of you on her profile and possibly on how we should move ahead with this session. Ms. Subhadra Mailswamy, who is a managing partner at AK Mailswamy Associates, they are an organization formed in 1956, which means they have got several decades of experience into legal consulting and other strategic guidance matters. On a startup perspective, I mean, there are several legal matters which all of you would be very keen to learn from ma'am during this session. Ma'am has a dual undergraduate as well as a dual postgraduate in law, communications, and related matters. She has about 2 decades of experience and is a prolific writer, researcher, and sought-after speaker in many of the legal discourses. She deals with a whole lot of, legal activities, not to mention 1 or 2, and has been a speaker in many of academic and professional events. She has addressed NASSCOM, Madras Chamber of Commerce and Industries, Tamil Nadu Startup Ecosystem, and several others. With this note, I welcome you, ma'am, to deliver your talk. We have around 40 startups. I hope most of them have joined this session. Okay. If not, they'll be joining shortly. So I understand that they have several, you all will be having several questions, but let's all first learn from ma'am about what she has to tell us. And in the end, we may have a question and answer session, depending upon the time availability. Welcome you, ma'am, and look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Sarosh, for that very crisp and clear introduction. And thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to address the Tech Inspire sessions. So moving on to, of course, you're all very well aware what's the topic today, which is all about future-proofing the startups and what are the legal essentials in today's business world, which we are looking at. So before I move on to the topic as such, I would also like to give you a brief introduction from my end, what we are and who we are, so that you understand. So AK Mailswamy and Associates, as the introduction was built, we have done about 60 plus years. We are in service. We are a full-fledged corporate law firm where we thoroughly believe on the stance of their strong foundation on competence and commitments. And of course, our team, we have a team of experts who are experienced in diverse fields where if you look into, we will be able to give you tailored legal solutions based upon various sectors and industries. We have also handled, if you have seen on your screen, 50K plus cases today and much more in counting. So we are headquartered in Chennai, in Bengaluru, in Coimbatore. So we do also a lot of work out of Kerala, Cochin especially. So this is in short about AKM, and the founding partner is none other than Mr. AKM Alsami, who is my father, and I'm the managing partner. And there, if you look into the next aspect, is what services we are providing is on the commercial and corporate laws, especially for the startup areas. A lot of restructuring and insolvency work on banking and finance. Dispute resolution is nothing but today, if you look into most of your agreements will go into the aspects of arbitrations. So we do a lot of arbitration, conciliation and mediation. Foreign exchange, intellectual property rights, especially essential for the startups, the litigation angle, which comes into later play, and of course, the privacy and data protection, which is today, last year, we have enacted the Digital Personal Data Protection Act. So we deal quite a bit on that because privacy is something which we have been dealing a long time, especially on the GDPR angle. Real estate and sports is something which we do for sports agents, sports law. And of course, today's most important on startup advisory and taking care of your founders agreement and everything. And of course, the techno-based law, where I specialize more on cybersecurity, privacy law, as well as on the AI rules and regulations today, right? So today, how we are going to deal is the overview, which I wanted to give you an insight is about what is the importance of compliance? Because as a startup, we are all very keen about just hitting the button, putting it, getting our commercials in, but we forget certain legal requirements which are required for you when you start off as a startup. So the importance of the compliance, what are the business registrations and structuring when you are a startup you have to look into and do. And for startups, intellectual property matters a lot. A lot of us ignore that aspect. So why? Then the legal compliance or a checklist, which I've put forth for the startups. So, and then you will have what are the common mistakes startups do, especially in the IP angle and what you should avoid. And of course, last but not the least, I would say the impact of the Digital Personal Data Protection Act, which is your data privacy, because today everything is digitalized and data is huge today and how to protect it. And of course, the key steps, how to comply for the startups on the DPDP angle and your certifications, right? So this is how we would be taking the session forward. Once I complete the session, of course, I've got question answers which have been circulated for me. I will address that and then I will open the floor for you all to also ask questions. Now, if you look into the slide in front of you, now you should understand that in today's business world or in the dynamic area of how business is progressing, we have startups in everything possible. In any avenue you see there is startup. So if a startup is starting a business, it is not your aim only is not to just look into the commercials or to scale up. Of course, yes, that is. But you should also look into the angle of compliance when you're creating your company. So it is like a baby which is born. You have to go step by step in doing things. We cannot expect it to immediately have an instant growth. The similar thing is in a startup, right? So compliance, if you look into, is not just about just following your rules. It is also about, you should understand, securing your business. How can I secure my business in the initial stage when I'm creating? Especially when you have to get investors' trust, right? That's very, very important because you're looking for funds, you're looking for money, you're talking not only locally, sometimes globally as well. So compliance is your foundation stone for a startup. And not only that, once you have your compliance in place, it also gives you a long-term success for your business to run without any hitches or glitches. Most of the startups, when they come to us, they say, ma'am, initially we didn't bother all this because we were only on the angle of driving our business, getting our money in, scaling up our business. So we didn't do much of the compliance. We said, when it comes, we will take it. That is not the way to run a business or a startup. As you're starting, created your company, your name, whatsoever, and then you're progressing step by step in parallel, you have to ensure your compliances are put into place. So a strong legal foundation only will help your startups to avoid any kind of risks to protect your intellectual property, and also which will help you to comply with the evolving regulations which are coming through, right? After that, if you look into just not any idea or any kind of rapid expansion is not enough, but legal compliances for startups, especially to avoid certain risk penalties or disputes or even closures, is extremely important. So many businesses today encounter preventable legal troubles because they have already, due to their missed filings and inadequate documentation or lack of intellectual property rights. So you have to see that everything is done prior so that you do not get caught up when there are troubles coming in when you don't follow compliances. So it is extremely important that in this fast-paced of startup landscape, following your legal and regulatory requirements is completely essential, and staying compliant not only upholds the legal integrity, but also it strengthens your investor trust and fosters your long-term success. So that is extremely important. Why we have to be compliant ready or understand what is the surrounding compliance required for your business. Without that, it's very, very wrong to move forward and then build your business without a structure. So if a foundation has to be laid, it is a mixture of various ingredients. Am I right? It is not just a stone or just the cement. It requires so many things. It requires a good soil. It requires a good, you choose a venue, you choose so many things for a construction to happen. Similar way is how when you do a startup, you analyze, you think you're already there on an incubation period, you're incubated, but what are my other essential ingredients to construct my business, to uplift my business is extremely important. Now, if you look into the, give me a minute. If you look into the other angle, which is why is compliance today important for us? See, number one, if you can see, it is on the cost savings. Every startup I know is trying your best because on cost savings. Any legal battle which you face later on will become complicated for you. It is a lot of money. You will have a lot of regulatory penalties. It can be expensive and time consuming. So most of the startups, if you look into, will say later, because this is not the stage, I will do it later. But please understand, prevention is better than cure. When you're compliant ready, things become easy for you at the right stage. Next, if you look into also is your investors' confidence when they have. See, any legally sound business with any kind of proper documentation and compliance frameworks instills a lot of trust and attracts funding opportunities because they are telling them, hey, listen, I am clean. I have the required paperwork. I am proper. I am ready. And this is my pitch. One is your business pitch. One is also your legal compliances, which give them for an outsider. How do you build a trust for an outsider who's going to pour in funds into your business? You may have the best pitch, you may have the best innovation, you may have everything, but for him to rely that you are legally binding and falling into the regulations of today's framework, especially today, if you look into our country, the startup boom is so much. And our central government is also pushing for so much of innovation schemes are coming in. But you should also understand our regulatory frameworks are also becoming tighter and tighter. I'm sure most of you are aware of that. So the next angle, if you look into, is on the operational continuity. See, anything when there is regulations, if you're not compliance can lead to a lot of disruptions, such as business licenses gets cancelled, tax penalties will come into place, or a lot of lawsuits will be filed against you. When you're running your business, I always tell not just startups, for any business owner is, your job is to run the business, not to look into the legal aspects or to go around a filing aspect. That is a job of a legal person, right? So you should understand that. And other most important area, if you look into, is the common pitfalls which you see. So if you neglect any kind of timely filings, statutory filings, many startups here postpone their regulatory filings, including their business registrations. This is absolutely not recommended. In fact, even your tax returns or any kind of licensing, because your focus, as I'm telling you, is only on your product, your development, or your process, and you're ignoring it. That is something which you have to completely avoid. So any missing deadlines can also result in a lot of legal penalties where the government has come up to today. So you should understand that you cannot afford to have any kind of those kind of penalties as well, right? Next is in the aspects of choosing what kind of legal structure should I use. I've got that questionnaire also with me where a lot of people have asked what is this. So I've already have a presentation here on. If you look into, there are these aspects on registration, especially selecting the right business structure is important, especially on the angles of taxations, on liabilities, on fundraising opportunities, as well as to make the right choice very early to ensure your long-term scalability and compliance. So if you look into your screen, you will see that you have generally it is the private limited companies, you have the partnerships, and you have the one-person company. So let me take you all to one step at a time on this, right? So if you look into a private limited company, it is a company which is a preferred structure for most of the startups who are planning to raise any kind of venture capital, or if they are seeking any kind of institutional investments. So it offers a limited liability protection, and also it allows the investors to acquire their equity in the business. You should understand that, right? Next, if you look into is the one person, that is one person company, which you have heard about. It is called as the OPC. It provides the limited liability protection for any single entrepreneurs. As a single person, I'm starting a business. So it is making it more like a better, I would say, an alternative to sole proprietorships. It also allows your full business control with more of easier compliance than a private limited company, right? So if you look into this angle, it is best for any kind of small businesses and single founders. Only one person is there. So it is best for them. And it is also best, must convert it into a private limited company only when you exceed a turnover of 2 crores. So you should understand these are the basic structures which we recommend, or you can choose depending upon your business. See, as a legal expert, I cannot tell you one fit or a customized solution for every startup. Every business is different. Depending upon your business structure, on your blueprints, how you want to drive, you also have to structure it in an early stage. Structuring comes into place only after you have a clear vision for your startup. So you have to think through. So this is extremely important because this is your biggest foundation stone for a startup, right? So choosing the legal structure, how to go about, is extremely, extremely important. Now, after that, if you look into, is the angle of incorporation. See, these are the essentials for a startup. Now, when you look into the incorporation angle, we will look into, first, if you see on your screen, is the company registration process. So registering a startup itself involves several key steps. One, if you look into, I would have talked to you about the pre-incorporation compliance, where you have to choose your business structure, which I was explaining to you before, whether you want it as a private limited, you want it as an LLP, or you want it as an OPC, right? Or as a partnership. So you have to be the person sole authority to choose. Then you have to apply for the name approval through the reserve unique name, which is called as the Run Today, which is also on the MCA portal. I'm sure most of you who have gone into the registration angle know where you have to go and register. It is on the MCA portal. And then you have to do your digital signature certificate you have to obtain, which is called as the DSC, and your director identification number for any of your key personnel, which is called as a DIN. Now, the second leg after this is, I would say, is your pre-incorporation checklist. After that is your incorporation process as such. Now, in the incorporation process, if you see, is you have to file your incorporation documents with the Registrar of Companies, which you know very well is the ROC. In that, it will include your memorandum of association, which you called as an MOA. You will have your articles of association, which is called as the AOA, declarations by the directors and also by the subscribers. Now, these are all the legal required documents which you have to work through, understand how you have to go into format it for an MOA and also articles of association, because these are compliance angles which you need to know. And before you structure them, also have an idea about your company, how the growth, what you want, what is it you're going to even envision of future, and put the required in it. Then you have to obtain your permanent account number, which is your PAN, and your tax deduction and collection account numbers, which is your TAN, automatically through your incorporation process, right? After that, of course, all of us know is your GST registration, if it is applicable for your services. Some of the services are exempted from GST. And of course, it requires your annual turnover exceeds a prescribed limit. Then you will have your shops and establishment registrations if it is required, needed for any kind of certain office setups, especially in certain states, right? So these are all your second step. Now, when you come to your third step is your post-incorporation compliance. Here, what do? You have to open a corporate bank account. You have to issue certain share certificates, especially within, for subscribers within 60 days. You should also appoint an auditor within 30 days of your incorporation. Then you have to file for your commencement of business certificate, which is called as the INC 20A, before you start any operations. And then you should also ensure there are regular ROC filings, AOC 4 forms, NGT 7, all these tax compliance and board meetings are done. See, these are all compliance, completely compliance-oriented stuff, which every startup or every business has to do. It is not just you. Everybody who is starting an entity have to have all these things and has to comply with it and also ensure it is timely done. See, if you miss filing of compliances on time, it reflects bad on your company. You will get into unnecessary legal intricacies, which will risk your business, and you'll be, instead of running on your business and pitching for your business and developing it, your time and effort will go into solving a legal issue. So please avoid these things. That's my humble request, right? For you now, it will look like, oh, there is so many forms, so many things. Don't get overwhelmed. You should take step by step, and how to move and the right guidance is extremely important, because I do understand startups have a cash crunch. It's very difficult. They'd say budgeted. Yes, all that. But you should know where to invest. This is your major investment, startups. I would request each one of you to be compliant ready, have your legal documents in place, and not postpone things, because this is your huge investment. And if you invest on this correctly only, can your business run properly? So please understand the importance on that compliance angle, right? The next one, which I wanted to bring forth to all of you, and of course, the questionnaire also has this, is on the founders agreement. What is this founders agreement and why it is important for a startup? See, starting a business with any kind of a co-founders is very, very, I would say, an exciting endeavor. But without a well-defined agreement, a lot of misunderstandings come, conflicts can arise, potentially, especially jeopardizing your own startup's success. So, as I'm telling you, founders agreement is extremely important. Now, what does this founders agreement have? It is a critical legal document, you should understand that, which establishes the framework for how your business will be managed and ensuring clarity and also the stability, which is also very, very important. And first and foremost will be, most important is the defining your roles and responsibilities, especially in the areas for tech startups as well as particularly in the early stages where they rely on your founders to wear multiple hats. Because you are small, the founder of the company will be running, he will be pitching, he will be speaking for investment, he will be running his HR, he will be running his accounts, he will be the compliance manager, he will be all in all. But without a clear division of responsibilities, confusions will come into place. So for example, here I would like to say in a co-founder team, which is consisting, say, of a technical and a business-oriented founder, like for example, in the sense of like Larry Page and Sergey Brin of Google, they very clearly divided their roles between engineering and business strategy. So please have a discussion on your roles and responsibilities, who is going to do what. One person alone cannot shoulder all the responsibilities. Delegation is important, and who is going to be accountable and who is going to be responsible to propel these things is very, very important. Next is your ownership structure and your equity distribution. So one of the most contentious issues in a startup is your equity allocation all the time. So in the founders agreement itself, you should establish how much ownership each founder can hold, whether their shares are divided equally or it is based on factors such as initial investments or their time commitments or on the intellectual property contributions. See, this is extremely, extremely important, right? So think through before you make into any of the agreement. Next step is, before you make into your agreements, these are the points which you have to be considering. Decision-making process and voting rights. So in tech startups are extremely fast moving. Every day, everything is so every minute as I'm talking, there's something new coming in. So the need for any efficient decision-making mechanisms or to take the risk stagnations have to be put into place. So your agreement should clearly define how major business decisions will be made, whether it is to any unanimous consents, or is it going to be through a majority voting, or it is going to be based on ownership percentage. Please understand, if you don't have this in place, it is a stagnation. And when you have over approvals which has to go through, approvals take time. This is with my own experience in huge companies. To get an approval and to move forward is a task. So see and decide how you want, because time is a factor today on a startup. So you must have quick decision-making management or systems in place, and how you want to allocate it is up to you, your business model. Say, for example, I want to throw it here, like Apple in 1985. They had certain disagreements over their strategy, and they led to Steve Jobs being forced out of his own company. So in cases like this, right, your exit strategies or anything also has to be put into place. Next is what I want to talk to you is on that exit strategy and the founder departures. Here, if you look into startups' growth and their trajectory can be severely impacted by a founder's sudden departure, exit, right? So the agreement also should outline your exit strategy, specifying what will happen when your shares or upon your departure, including your buyout provisions, ensuring that the remaining founders or the company itself has the right to either it has to be repurchasing their departing founder shares, or rather than allowing them to be sold to an external party. In most of the cases today, if you see in startup scenarios, if a founder wants to depart, the company will buy their shares and let them out. Or if you're looking into a growing factor where you've seen a commercial and there are interesting options where people are interested in your business to buy out the shares and it's going to scale up your business, you could do that too. But please understand, most of the time it has to be a win-win scenario, right? So it's extremely important. In many startups, what they do is, it is the scaling of business and it's the commercial. So they lose out in the sense they're very clear that it has to be instant growth. If you are put your heart and soul, found something, processed and innovated something, why are you guys letting it out so easily? fight for it. It's for you. So have a long-term vision. You can make money now. You can reinvest again. Yes, definitely yes. But think through, right? That is very, very important. Next is, if there is a dispute, how will we resolve? So the conflict resolution management or mechanisms. So your agreement, the founders agreement, should also include a very structured conflict resolution process, such as many people today don't opt for litigation because it's a long drawn process, it's expensive. So we have other options, which I was talking to you, is called as the alternative dispute resolution systems, which is you have mediations today, you will have arbitrations or certain kind of voting mechanisms to resolve certain disputes amicably, since tech startups frequently face conflicts, especially due to diverging visions or interpersonal clashes. So please understand, you should have all these things captured in your founder's agreement, which is your soul for your startup, right? Now, moving on to the next, the most, I would say, most sought after aspect in startups, the questions which are being posed more and more for me is on the intellectual property rights. And what are the types and how do I protect them? So I've just given you there on the aspects of patents to copyrights to trademarks and trade secrets, understanding from where you are all coming from. Now, if you look into the aspects of, say, for example, copyrights as such, you will understand that copyright protects nothing but your original content, where you will have including like some of your source codes, your UI or UX designs, your website content as such, and documentation, sometimes your pitching, which is completely only to you and it's for your business. Then your copyright also applies automatically, but for any kind of formal registration, which provides for a stronger legal proof, right? Now, the next angle for you, if you look into, will be your trademarks. All of you will start your business only with a trademark, a name. There is a logo. Logo is nothing but your symbol, sometimes even a tagline. I'm sure what you understand by a trademark is, it is to protect your brand identity. It will have your, like I mentioned, your logos, your product names, it will be slogans. For example, if you look into the tech, today if you talk about Tesla, everybody knows the name Tesla, what it talks about, right? How did Tesla become famous? It's building on your brand, the name you choose, the logo, that sharp kind of a T, which you see today anywhere, you know it is Tesla. So today, if you say about the chip companies or IBM or anything, you know it is because of their brand and the kind of logos they have adopted. If you look at Google, today you know which is the name of the Google, the brand of the Google, the colors which you know, it's differentiating them, right? So if you look into AI aspects as well, today you know what ChatGPT is, it's with their logo and the name they have given. Did we even come up with a name? It's a coined name, right? So you have in China, you have the DeepSeek. DeepSeek has come up with a name, a color, a logo. So this is, even without your name of the company, your logo can speak. So that is on the angles of trademarks to protect and how strong you have to register it to prevent others from using it. And not just that. Please, if there is an infringement, even when you're in a startup rate and you've got your rights and you have it for you, ownership, fight out for it. Don't sit quiet. This I have seen a lot of them saying, ma'am, it's okay. We are looking at scaling up a business. So what? No, it's your baby. If you don't fight for your innovation or your protection or for your brand identity and logo, there is dilution in the market today with so much happening with even the use of AI tools, right? So please stand for it and fight. It's not just registering, but also fighting for it when it gets infringed. Next, if you look into is the angle of trade secrets, I would say. So what are these trade secrets? These are nothing but confidential business informations such as customer data. You will have algorithms or you will have been marketing certain marketing strategies which are privy only to you. And you should also understand in the aspects of patents as well, the process which involves any kind of your patent searches, your filing applications, examinations, ultimately you will get your grant. But The patent also, you should understand, lasts only for 20 plus years. And for the patents to protect any kind of technological inventions, any new softwares or hardware solutions will come in for your patent aspect. Please understand, not everything which is innovative to you can be patentable. I'm sure you all know. It has to be extremely innovative. You have to go through those checklist of patents and innovations, how it goes by. A patent search is prior important before you start off just by going ahead to file it, right? Now, these are extremely important when it comes from the angles of intellectual property and what you do and how to protect. So before we start off with an idea of going and talking to anybody, kindly have strict NDAs and strict internal policies which will help you to have confidentiality. It's extremely important, right? So have an NDAs in place, and it's extremely important so that your ideas are not stolen at the stage of discussion. Many a time startup comes to me and says, my idea is stolen, ma'am. I just discussed with group of my friends. I thought we are friends for a long time, or it is my partner who's been with me for a long time, a trustworthy person, or it is my family member. No, when it is business, please understand, business, maintaining utmost professionalism to have your business in place is very required. We do not run a business just based on oral exchanges. We run business based on documentation and compliance, and also having appropriate NDAs signed in the place to protect yourself. Tomorrow, you know very well it is yours which has been stolen, but you are not in a state to help or to fight for it. What is a claim? So have these things. When you talk about documentation itself and NDAs itself, many people will take a back seat if they are not very serious. The ones who are serious will do an NDA. So understand that these are extremely important in the aspects of your IP stage. Now, why should IP matter to me? That's the often asked, ma'am, I am scaling, I found my innovation, my product is ready. I have a huge buyer from abroad. He is telling me he's going to buy, he's ready to sign any agreement with me. He's ready to buy anything from me, ma'am. I want to go ahead with it. I'm not interested. Whatever it is, I will see it later. I want you all to understand. Number one, IP is the most important, valuable asset for a startup or a business which you can own. Whether it is your unique product, whether it is your brand name, whether it is your technology or any creative content you're creating, securing your IP rights only ensures that your business can maintain exclusivity over others' innovations. So I have also listed out for you some of the key reasons highlighting the importance of an IP. Now, why should I have an IP? Nobody wants to file IP initially. I'm telling you, they're saying, ma'am, it's expensive. Applications are. Please understand, government is providing you grants for these applications if you're a startup. Various schemes are there. And also there are a lot of things which is floating around in the market of free agents of people who are filing IPs, but understand, you should be guided in the right way. If you're looking at cutting your cost and going for any kind of free sign up by agents or 200 rupees filings which has been done, please understand what you pay is what you get. 200 rupee filing will be, they will ask you one few questions, finish it, and that's it. After that, what you do? You are clueless. Please understand, this is an entire process and a portfolio which has to be looked into for a long term. Nobody talks about it. So please be aware where and whom do you choose when your IP is coming and how you're going to file up. Now, coming back to the importance of IP, brand identity. It is an increasingly crowded market. Brand identity is what is going to differentiate you today from a startup from other competitors, right? So your trademarks, either it can be your trade dress is what we also have in trademarks, your copyrights, or anything, your company's name to logo. everything has to be protected. It's your brand and it is associated with your products or services. Today, for example, if I show you just say, for example, the tick, just the tick mark. Tick, what does it convey to you? It shows it's Nike, right? It does not have a slogan, only the tick. That's the power of your brand and your logo. Inverted golden arches, anywhere in the world you see is what? McDonald's. Even without McDonald's writing, just the yellow color inverted arches says McDonald's today, right? Chicken, crispy chickens when you see, and one old man with the glasses you see, it is KFC. See, this is the power of brand building. Please understand. And this brand was not built in a day. It takes ages and years together to build a brand. So it is utmost important. Your brand identity is only given when you do and you protect it, right? Even for, that's extremely important. Next, if you look into is also, I've given you an example there of Apple Inc., where their trademark and their trade name, which is the iconic logo, are among the most recognized symbol in the world. So if you look into Apple, nobody would have thought, and also please understand, you cannot trademark anything like Apple and use and sell fruits. They won't allow you. So there are certain norms on what kind of logos you choose and things like that, right? Now, second is, if you look into, is the competitive advantage. Startups often develop more innovative products, but without an IP protection, your competitors can copy it very easily. They can reverse engineer things or even patent it with a similar idea before even you go ahead. So a great example here is the 3D painter patent, which came into being. So please be aware of these things. Next, if you look into is your revenue opportunities. IP is not just about protection, but it is also about a valuable revenue stream, right? Over one of the best known examples I would like to say is the Microsoft Windows. If you look into Microsoft Windows, which is developed, and you see Windows as a proprietary software product today, which is used all over, right? It is licensed. And if you look into it is also, it's got your hardware into manufacturers like others like Dell, HP, and Lenovo. This licensing model itself has turned Windows into a global standard chosen product, and it has also helped Microsoft to become as a multi-billion-dollar company. See the way they have used their IP. This is on their IP, right? How smartly they have commercialized. You should see that commercialization, if you want to do for your startup, IP is extremely important. Only if you have your IP can you also have a commercial angle to it. Not buying, registering, and keeping. Also looking out and also very smartly saying how you can use your IP and create your revenue stream. So if you look into here is your also the legal recourse. Only with your legal IP protection can startups also have little recourse if any kind of a competitor copies their ideas or your brand, or having registered your patents or your trademarks or copyrights also gives you a very strong legal grounds to take action, especially against any kind of infringement, especially preventing your competitors from any kind of siphoning off or profit or stolen innovations. So please be aware that only when all this comes into place, you can have a great way to build your brand, your product, and your innovation. So this is your core for any startup is your IP. So please keep that always in mind, right? Now, the next angle is what are the checklist or legal compliance for startups? Now, if you look into the slide, it clearly says one is identifying and documenting your IP asset. This is the first work which you have to do. So startups must systematically start to identify and also catalog all the forms of intellectual property which you're holding, including your innovations, your designs, your trademarks, your patents, your copyrights or trade secrets, whatever maybe you're going to file under various classes, which you are going to fall, you have to see that and make that filing. So you have to ensure that you identify and document all your IP assets. Next is you should secure your IP rights early in the development stage itself. This is extremely important because it prevents your competitors from, as I mentioned, taking it on similar innovations or copying it. Startups also should file for your provisional patents or trademarks as soon as you develop your unique ideas. See, there is no need for you to wait for a complete product. You have provisional patents which give you time to on filings, right? So please look into those aspects and do it. Number 3 is registering your trademarks for your brand protection. So it is extremely important for you to register your trademark, which is extremely vital for protecting your startups, either your brand, which I've been talking about, the identifying. It can be, as I mentioned, your names, your logos, and your slogans, which is your taglines. So these are extremely important. And your registered trademark also, you should understand, provides a certain amount of legal grounds to challenge any kind of infringements or reinforces which come into the market credibility. So there are a lot of people who copy things and they can pass it off. So they can ride on your back if they are seeing you growing well. So to protect yourself and your name, your brand and identity is extremely important to have these filings in place. Now, when it comes for filing of your patents or any innovations, it is extremely important for you also to understand it provides certain exclusive rights over your innovations and technologies, and also it prevents competitors from replicating them or copying. It gives you the exclusive ownership, right? In the area, as well as using your copyrights to secure a lot of creative works, right? By registering copyrights, especially for startups in the areas like I mentioned before, on any kind of literary work. It can be on your designs, it can be on your pitch which you're making, which is exclusively a blueprint only for your company. So these things is extremely important for you to have an idea. Next is also how you have to protect your trade secrets, which is certain formulas which will be, if you're in a pharma related areas, you will have certain formulas which you will be having. So those are all trade secrets, certain recipes which would be around, business strategies which will be there. So these are all even your technical know-hows. So these are all very key competitive assets which has to be taken and looked into. So to protect as a checklist and for your startups, it's extremely important. Number 1, I would reiterate and keep telling you the same. Have your NDAs in place, especially with the team, your employees, your partners, as well as your vendors. Do not go outrightly and share things, right? Just not registering and keeping. You have to monitor your IP portfolio. You have to enforce your IP rights. How will a right, just registering and keeping it alone is not going to help you, right? It is you, if you find somebody is copying something similar or something is getting copied from you and you know this person is doing it and it's out in the market, it is your right. That's why you have registered it, to say, hey, listen, this is my product. You can't touch. I have the right. And that is the first step. So continuous monitoring and active enforcement is very crucial to maintain your IP value. If you don't monitor, if you don't understand, or if you leave it and you say, it's okay, let's see when it comes, it is not going to help. If you've registered and there's a right of it, please act on it. Don't think, oh my God, I'm a small startup. How can I fight with a big fellow who's already established in this corporate? He will just chew me up. No, I'll give you an example. Very simple example. I'm sure most of us know Amazon and we are ordering left, right, center. See, Amazon processes, a lot of vendors are there, and Amazon tries to also somewhere get into infringement issues most of the time. So there were 2 ladies who were very small time people who were using baking things or bakery products. They put it on Amazon, and Amazon very easily infringed their name or what they were carrying on. You won't believe, they are Bangalore-based startups. They filed for their infringement and they won. Today, courts are very serious about infringements and they have got the benefit, they have got the damages from Amazon. So please voice it out. Being quiet alone doesn't give you anything. Voice it out, stand out. That also creates a visibility for you to say you're fighting. And it also says, gives you the power to, and the ownership right is given to you more and more, and people are watching it. So you're not someone who can be easily bought. That gives you that strength and for your business as well, right? So these are the IP legal compliance checklist which I put forth for you for the startup arena. Next, if you look into is the common IP mistakes which all the startups have to look into. So non-registration, leaving your IPs unprotected, failing to register your marks on time is not at all good. Next, if you look into is the underestimating the value of the IP. Many startups focus only on your, I'm saying, product development, building their asset, and they do not think that IP is the most important value. So that you have to look into. Only with your IP can you build for your funding or even to differentiate in your business. And also not using NDAs. I think I've spoken so much about the aspect of the NDAs. So please understand that as well, right? Next is neglecting certain international protections. So most of our startups only focus on domestic IP registrations, not realizing that there are also international markets which require separate trademarks and patent filings. So if you're looking to scale up and you're looking at UAE or you're looking at Europe or if you're looking at US, every country has its own filing process. It's expensive. So you have to choose right away as you scale what kind of IPs you want to file, right? This is a very interesting and a new slide. Not many people are even understanding or understand what this is. So DPDP is nothing but a digital personal data protection. It is protecting an individual's right. So as startups today, as you're growing by, you should understand that today there are laws where an individual is given the right to question how your data is used. So every startup, if you're collecting certain amount of data, whether it is your own HR data, vendors data, there are rules and regulations to comply with. You have certain rules on consent policies or notices which has to be given. When you have a website, your cookie policies, privacy policies have to re-looked or vetted into the angle of this new enactment. So what is this enactment? Let me give you a brief. So it is, as I told you, it regulates only your personal data collection and processing. It is where, as an individual, today we have the right to know how our data is going to be collected, how long it can be stored, it can, for what purpose it is to be stored, and after that, today it has to be deleted. So there are certain norms. It gives you a right and to protect your data. And there is a lot of data on digital data. This act is applicable only for digital data and not for any data which is written on books. So it gives you a right to question, right? And a compliance angle today, all businesses, including mine, have to comply today with this act, right? Next, if you look into the most interesting aspect will be most of the startups, if you look into, if they are foreign or European or anywhere, their compliance will fall into the GDP area. If you look into GDP is nothing but the General Data Protection Regulation, where your privacy laws come into place. If you're scaling up or if you're going cross-border, most of the MNCs will follow the GDPR, where they talk about how your data has to be protected when you're transferring data, how cross-border data have to be complied with. So that is the GDPR angle. Next is in the aspect of if it is US, you will see the California Consumer Privacy Act, which will be applicable for many of the small businesses. The targets are California. So you will largely see on that compliance angle. Say, I wanted to touch base and give an insight for you all on the privacy angle and also on the how your data has to be protected throughout, like on a global perspective. Now, what is actually this DPDP? This ma'am is suddenly throwing something in place calling Protection Act, Digital Protection and all. So I'm going to tell you for startups why it is important. You should understand, especially when you're dealing with customer data, any kind of non-compliance will definitely lead for penalties and reputation risk. And please mind you, the central government is very clear about it. If there is a breach of your data from your system, the penalties goes up to 250 crores. See, the act is coming to enforcement. The rules of this act will be coming mostly in about 8 weeks' time into force. So every company, big, small, startup, anything is required. This is a compliance requirement today in the legal landscape and also in the business landscape. So you have to adopt to this compliance requirement, including the aspects of your data localizations, where I had mentioned before, you have to have your consent mechanisms and the rights. What are my rights? So only with this proper compliance itself, you will get, why should I be compliant with data? Today, data is huge. It's digital. Only with data is our business itself running. So number one, if you become compliant ready, you get your trust, you attract more investors, and you're differentiating yourself from other startups where you can see it is increasingly a data-driven market. Now, most of the key steps, I have just put a roadmap like that for you all to understand and assess. So you should first evaluate how you're going to collect all the data, how you're going to process and store the personal data of people, individuals, right? Their name, mobile numbers, email IDs, for what purpose you're collecting. And also for you to understand the kind of the data you're going to handle, whether it is going to include certain personal sensitive informations like financial records or biometrics of data or any kind of location details, which is essential for compliance. See, this compliance is little heavy because it is data. And most of the startups, even if you're in a healthcare sector, developing something or anything, you will be having sensitive personal data, which is patient records and things. So you have to be very careful and you should ensure that you do not get into any kind of legal issues when you have poor data practice, right? Next is you have to audit and map it. So you should conduct an data audit, which will help your business to track how your information is flowing within your own systems, and also identifying where and how your personal data is getting stored, processed, and shared. So every time you're collecting a data, all these things have to be mapped, and it is essential you keep utmost transparency and security measures are taken. You should also define your own internal policies, which come up later on when you're as a startup. What are your policies to govern on data securities, your employees' access, and the breach, if any breach happens, how I'm going to deal with the breach, right? So these are extremely important, and these are like policies you should outline with certain protocols on what I had mentioned to you before, because today it is mandated under this act. So making your policies clear is very, very important, even if you are having third parties like vendor agreements where you're outsourcing certain information of HR or anything, vendors are using it, even they fall under this compliance. So please understand, this is not something which is small, but it is extremely important for you to also scale up and how you're going to manage. There is a concept called as consent management, where in India, they have introduced someone called as a consent manager. A one person nominated in your company will be a consent manager, because you will be having huge data as you grow up. And if there is any breach or any change on the data, that person is nominated as a consent manager there to approve on the individual's behalf. So these are all things which will come up on a later stages. I don't want you all to get overthrown or get scared, but it is for you to create. This is why I put this slide, is for you to have the awareness, number one. Privacy and data protection awareness is not at all there in our country. So now we have a law which is enforced, because we are also going cross-border. We have become digital today, and the Indian government has made everything digital, and all our data is floating across. So that's why this enactment has come into play. And also the next step is provide for user rights. If I'm your user, I have the right to access my own data which I'm giving, modify it, also delete my own personal data. So these are all things which are coming to with the DPDP Act. Then it is also the management of any kind of third parties, which I was telling you, vendors and other people, especially on the areas of cloud storage providers, payment gateways, all of which will have access to your user data. So you have to be careful on how you remain responsible, ensuring that all your external partners also comply with the data protection regulation. You can't say, I sent it to him, it's his headache, he made a breach, it's not me. The concept of vicarious liability will apply here, right? Next, if you look into is to enhance your data securities. Please understand data security measures. I'm sure all tech startups know it is extremely essential to prevent any breaches, any kind of unauthorized accesses, or any cyber threats. So all the startups must also implement, I would say, end-to-end encryptions, any kind of multi-factor authentications which is required, breach notifications, and protocols to protect the user data. So with this, I'm kind of summing up for you to understand. I have given you right from the creation of a startup, like from the time you are going to start your foundation till you're going to scale up on a larger level, right? So with this, I would like to also conclude by telling you very seriously, startups have to take compliance as a serious note and not only think about your products, your business and scaling up and commercial activities. To get there, you need these paperwork or compliance in place to attract investors, to get trust from customers. More than anything, it is for you to run your business smoothly as you scale up. So kindly avoid any unnecessary legal risks. Protect your own innovations and market positions by using and choosing correct IPs. As I mentioned, build your credibility with investors and customers and scale efficiently without having any hiccups, especially on regulatory obstacles. And always, always have a strong data protection regiment in place. So this is the summary or what I want to project to every startup who's here listening out. Please be compliant ready. Please have all your documentation and legal compliances in place. Once your IPs are done, it doesn't stop with registration. It goes beyond fighting for your own IPs and creating your own identification. So that's what I'm concluding with. And before I open the floor for question and answers, I also wanted to share this achievement where we had completed about 60 years in our practice, and January we had also a felicitation function where it was felicitated by Mr. M.M. Sundaresh, who is the judge of the Supreme Court, as well as Mr. P. Chidambaram, and of course the Advocate General of Tamil Nadu here, Mr. P.S. Raman. And we also had a biography, a release of a founding partner, Mr. A.K. Malsamy as well. So with that, I conclude. And you have on that last screen where it is the lottery and the Quixi. If you see, the lottery is and the Quixi is our firm's monthly e-newsletters, which are free of subscription, which is giving you legal updates in a very, very simple language, which any layman can understand. And it is completely colorfully done. So it is interesting because most people find legal is very complex and they can't understand. So we have made it very simple. And Quixi is exclusively an IPR one-pager article where IP updates are given to you all. So all of you, I would request to freely subscribe to it and keep yourself updated in this legal landscape and in the business landscape. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity and this time. And now I would be happy to open the floor either for the question answer sessions, or I would be happy to take first the questions which have been given to me. Anything works. I would leave it to the host to decide how would you want to take it forward, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. I mean, Gigi, if you can pitch in.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, because on the questions, I thought we had a list of questions which you have already communicated to ma'am, isn't it?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yeah.
So, ma'am, shall we discuss that first and then go to the...
I have the list of questions which you have already sent it to me. So I think the first one is going to be on the angle. I think I had already chosen, I had explained to them the slide on, I think it is on the options of what kind of right legal structure. I think that was my first question. And I did share that as well on the PPT, but still, if you want me to take through, I will take you through that again. So if you look into when you're choosing this right legal structure for a startup, as I mentioned, the most important consideration will be on your taxation angle. So when you're going to choose whether it's going to be a private limited company, an LLP, the benefit is from the lower corporate tax rates compared to any kind of a sole proprietorships where the income has been taxed as per individual slabs. So LLPs generally avoid dividend distribution tax, DDT, we will say, while private limited companies are subject to it. So one is on your taxations. Second is on your liability angles, which you will look into for private limited as well as for LLPs, where it offers more of the limited liability protection, which ensures your founders have certain personal assets. They do not want to risk it. So these are on the liability angles, I would say. So if you look into sole proprietorships and partnership, it exposes most of the owners to unlimited liability, right? That's why you have that structures in coming into place. Next is on the angle of, I would say, on the fundraising areas, where if you look into for private limited companies is much of the preferred choice for most of the venture capitalists. I'm sure most of you know that by now. And also for the angel investors, because it allows them to have they allow for equity dilutions as well as the issuance of shares. So I would say that is one. And if you look in for LLP and sole proprietorship, there is a lot of restrictions when it comes for raising external capital, especially when they cannot issue shares, right? So if somebody is pumping in money, they also want to have a hold and control on the company. So you can look into that angle. Then the compliance and regulations. If you look into for proprietorship, it's minimal compliance requirements. For LLPs, it's mostly on their annual filings, which go through with your MCAs. For private limited companies, most of it is the stringent regulations which you have to follow, including you will have your board meetings, you will have your audits, and you will also have your ROC filings. Plus, if you look into will be the other angle is on the exit strategies and expansion angles, where for private companies, it's mostly to facilitate easier mergers, acquisitions, and IPOs. Today, IPO is a big trend. Everybody wants to get into IPO. So you should see that. And LLPs also, again, if you look at to have restrictions on ownership transfers, right? And sole proprietorships, it's more on that you can dissolve it with your owner's exits. It's a more easy thing. See, I would only say for startups, if you're looking at scalability and funding angle, a private limited company will be a best choice. But however, an LLP can be a very cost-effective alternative for a business, which is focused more on professional services with limited external funding needs, right? So that's, I think I've answered that first question on which came into my thing, as well as the next question which they asked me was, are there some general thumb rules to be considered in making a strong founders agreement? I had already addressed this on the PPT, but I would reiterate these thumb rules for you. Yes, equity allocation and vesting. You have to define how your equity is going to be split among your founders. Implement also a vesting schedule to ensure you have a clear commitment, and also prevent early exit from unfair benefiting. See, most people will find that once my money has come, I want to exit. So all these things have to be captured. Then the roles and responsibilities, as I mentioned, you have to define each founder's role, the decision-making authorities, the specific operational responsibilities to avoid conflicts. And of course, the decision-making and dispute resolution, which I already told you about. Please have easy decision-making regimes. Who is going to do what? The framework for your business. If there is a problem, any kind of dispute resolution mechanisms like arbitration clauses or mediations where you can very easily get disputes resolved without wasting time. Then your exit clauses, your buyout terms, you have to put it into place in case if there is a voluntarily or involuntarily exits which are being, it can be your death, it can be disability. So all these things have to be considered in your exit clauses. And also your IP ownership and confidentiality, like I mentioned, when you create your IP, who is going to own the IP? Is it going to be a combined IP by the company, or is it going to be by one? All these things, and also your confidentiality clauses, your non-compete and non-solicitation clauses have to be put into place. And of course, when it comes on the fundraising and future dilution angles, clarify how your future investments will impact equity distributions, as well as your voting rights, and also the dilution and protection mechanisms, right? So that was the second question which was given. And when you look into the third question, they asked me some industry specific licenses. So I am not going to go too much because it's like there's no one fit for all here. So I'm going to outline for you. So if you're into F&B kind of a startup, it is your FSS AI license, which is for your food business, including restaurants, cloud kitchens, or packaged food manufacturers. Then you will also have your health trade licenses, which is more for food outlets, eateries for local municipal authorities. Then if it is a liquor license, if it is alcohol which is being served. If you look into e-commerce and retail, which I think is more on your background, it will be your GST registrations, which is required. You will have your Shop and Establishment Act registrations for physical stores and business premises. Then you will have your legal metrology certificate, mandatory for selling any kind of pre-packaged goods, right? Now, when you come into technology and IT startups, here if you look into, it will be your DPIIT startup recognition. I'm sure most of you will have it, which helps you in availing your tax exemptions and your government incentives. Then you will have your data protection compliance, which will cover DPDP Act. It will cover your Information Technology Act. And if you're going global, it will be your GDPR, which is completely necessary for handling your customer data securely. And then you will have your STPI registrations, especially for software exports, which will also enable you a lot of tax benefits. So that is on the IT and tech sector, by and large, the licenses. If you're into healthcare and pharmaceuticals, it will be mostly your CDSCO license, where for selling of your medical devices and drugs. Then you will also have your Clinical Establishments Act registration, which is required for hospitals and also for diagnostic centers, and biomedical waste authorization necessary for clinics and labs which usually manage hazardous waste, right? So that's on the healthcare and pharma, I would say. Finance and fintech startups are other thing which I was thinking will be also important here is your RBI licenses like NBFCs, your payment gateways, your PPI licenses, which are required for your lending of your payments or wallet-based businesses, your SEBI registration, which is a need for any investment-related startup like mutual fund platforms and all. That is on the finance and fintech. Now, when you look into manufacturing and industrial startups, it's mostly to do with your factory licensing for setting up your manufacturing units. Of course, you will have your pollution control board clearance, which is mandatory for industries, which is impacting the environment. Then you will also have the Udayam registration, which is for your MSMEs, which provides in fact a lot of benefits under various government schemes, right? So this is all I would say I had covered on a broad umbrella on the licensing aspects for you to know. And the fourth question was, what legal aspects should startups be aware of when raising funds from angel investors or VCs? So here I would say you need to be aware of certain key legal aspects in the sense of there's something called as the term sheet and negotiations, right? So your term sheet should outline preliminary investment terms, which is non-binding, and also it should set certain foundations of key aspects like on valuations, on equity dilutions, on investor rights. So startups should also negotiate for certain favorable terms very clearly at the early stage. Then you will have your company structure and compliance, where investors will prefer private limited companies. As I mentioned before, it allows for equity issuance and also structured governance, and also compliance with Companies Act is essential. So you should have including proper share allotments and filings with your MCAs, right? Then next will be your equity dilution and shareholder rights. This is extremely important, how you understand how much of stake is being given up by you. So investors may ask for preferred shares or anti-dilution rights or both seats. So you should also ensure founder control is preserved by balancing investors' interest. You cannot give it up. So it is also the negotiation of how you want to structure your company and take it forward. Then is your due diligence and documentations. Investors will conduct a lot of financial, legal, and operational due diligence, where startups definitely should have proper documentation. The most important thing is the cap table detailing shareholding structures for you, your compliance certifications and tax filings which have to be there, and your intellectual property ownership and certifications which you should have. Then will be your investor agreements which come into. That is nothing but your SSAs, which is your share subscription agreements. Then you will have your shareholder agreements. These are all very important. Then you will also have your exit and liquidation clauses, like how if I'm going to, investors will seek exit options like for IPOs or any kind of buybacks or M&As you should look into. Then you will also have regulatory compliances. As I mentioned, if it's foreign investors, you have to comply with FEMA, FDI policies and RBI regulations. So you should be very, very careful about it. And startups also have this thing to adhere to the SEBI angel fund regulations if you are raising any money through angel networks. So I kind of summed up quite a bit for you on that angle also, to understand how you have to be aware when you're raising funds. It's extremely important. And next was, can a startup operate without a formal registration in its initial stages? If so, for how long? Of course, you can start and operate without a registration in initial stages, but it is only for a feasible or a limited period under specific conditions. See, many early stage entrepreneurs begin as unregistered or sole proprietors or some informal kind of partnership, especially when they're testing their business idea. But this approach is only common, I would say, for more of the freelancers or any kind of small scale businesses, those which are operating within a very small closed network. See, this will allow certain flexibility in the beginning, but when it also has its own significant limitations, right? So, and you should also understand, unregistered businesses means that the entity has no separate legal identity. If a problem comes, where will you go and ask? There is no identity to say this is the company it was formed, right? There are no contractors' names, there are no invoices issued legally, or you have no proof for funding and investors. And also you will have problems additionally on taxation, compliances. It's not easy. GST becomes a problem, especially when under GST regulations, if your business crosses a turnover or threshold of 40 lakhs for goods or 20 lakhs for services, you must opt for register for GST. To opt for GST, you should have all your registrations done as a company, right? So any of this is not going to give you any kind of scaling up at all. It may give you a cushioning initially, but I wouldn't recommend for as a foundation to start off something without any registration, right? So even without a company being formed, who's going to come even for you to come and work? How will you even go and pitch for a business? How will you formalize your business? How will you generate revenue? So you have to think about these things, right? So I would say typically maybe within the first 6 to 12 months, startup should transit or try to transfer to a private limited company or limited liability LLPs to have a legal protection, build your credibility, and to also attract investors, right? So that is extremely important. Additionally, you should also see that founders should protect, as I mentioned, your IPs for filing of trademarks or any kind of IP protection to avoid any kind of disputes. So I would definitely not recommend for a startup to just go without anything. It's good in the initial stages when you're trying, but definitely you should have a company being registered with the ROC for you too, if you're looking up at serious business and if you're looking up to scale up. So I think these were the questions which were asked and I have addressed. Now the floor is open. If anything beyond this, if you all want, I'm happy to address as well.
Yeah, we have a couple of questions,
Yeah.
actually 2 in the drop list. I'll read out one which would be relevant to
Okay.
most,
Is it-
even for us, this was like a little bit. This is from Shruti, who is running Dhanvantari Biomedical, for startups who are into assistive devices or
Okay.
assistive appliances, I would say. They have a Sahayata wheelchair,
Okay.
of their products.
Yeah, I can see the question, sir. She says our question is, we have patent granted in my name. We have a private limited company currently raising funds. Investors had requested to transfer the patent from individual to company. Can you please advise me on how we can do this? If it's a private limited company, definitely I think, because the investors will only look investing in the company, not at the individual. And you should transfer it to the company, no harm, but have the norms when you're transferring it to a private limited company, who is going to be holding it together. In the application, see, it's a joint applications which you will be making, right? So you should see who are going to be the innovators who are going to be on that application. It can be you, it can be someone else, or who else in the company. That's a choice, a business decision which you have to make. If you want more investment coming in, and if they say get it to the company, but the company, again, as I mentioned, there are a lot, it's a business decision. They will want it on the company rather on you, because then you get all the rights and you have the IPs, you have invented it, right? And you can scale it up anytime. When it comes onto the company, then it is a combined entity. And if he is able to buy you out, or if he is going to invest more, then he will ask also that investment. You should understand, as the money is coming in more and more for you, he is investing, you or she or whoever it is. They will ask you for the proprietary itself will become theirs. The IP itself will start to come to theirs, right? There will be a change. That's what I keep telling startups. It's your decision. It's your innovation. Your innovation, it's your decision. Why? You should ask them the question, why do you want me to transfer the IP to the company, on what angles? See, it's a discussion. Why not me? Scalability. But if you are going to give it to the company, the IP, your commercial angles have to also be negotiated. It's a business deal in the end of the day. So I would leave that absolutely to you, Shruti. I hope I answered that.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much for clarifying. But the attorneys and whomsoever I approached to, they said you take some financial benefit out of it for you individually, or else for the company you increase the valuation accordingly. So it's that overall as a business you will be benefited.
Yes. So that's what I said, right? Anybody who's going to invest into you will want to have the innovation part of it, because they know they can scale using it much more. So if you give everything to them, then you are left with nothing. So it is on the IP, how you're going to license your IP, franchising agreements, licensing agreements, all these come, right? That's when you have the experts playing their role on negotiation and licensing angles as well. So it's only through your IP can you commercialize and scale up. So you have to be very, very, very clear when you're negotiating with an investor on what, as other attorneys had put forth to you, the percentage.
Okay.
See, in the end of the day, it is a business call for you.
Right.
You want to scale up your business.
Right.
At the same time, you should also see how you're not going to dilute your innovation, or you're not going to be benefited out of it.
Right, right, right. Thank you so much, ma'am. I'm still exploring.
Just one more sub question from the incubator side.
Yes, sir.
I mean, in our incubation, we specify that, any IP that is generated
Mm-hmm.
So the incubation exercise has to be in the name of the company.
Okay.
Because I mean, many innovators come to us, they are in some stage of their IP, they have not filed it yet. But when they are filing, they should do it, and the IP should be in the name of the company. That's what we specify. So what are the options we ensure this? I mean, this is not related to this case, but in general, I am asking.
So it is again, most of the startup environment is when they are in like anywhere incubators are coming in and incubations are happening, they always ask for a share of it. It is always together. Most of the places they want it because when they are scaling up and when they are going, the commercials are only, see why you want an IP holds a commercialization, right? So here you're saying you can have it on the company. Definitely you can have it on the company. That's not at all. I'm not saying you should be only individual, but the percentage is where the point comes in. So how you're going to negotiate, how you're going to have it, what is the scalability in the future? Using this IP, are you going to build more? Who is pitching in more on that IP? Is the person who's creating it going to work more on that IP, build on it? Is it you're going to innovate it more? Or is it the company, is it the environment which is providing you the facilities also wants? Today, every college wants to have IP and patent. My question to you is, yes, all of us are filing patents, all startups, all institutions, educational institutions. Have we commercialized all those patents? We only go in for just filing and leaving. We don't commercialize. So that's the next step. We don't see that happening in a startup environment yet. So to answer your question very clearly, you can have it on a private company too, but it depends. It's a business call on how the innovator, the incubator, and the incubatee wants to take it.
Right, sure. Yeah.
See, at the end of the day, it's commercialization. Am I right, sir?
Yes, definitely, yes.
So it's a business call for sure.
Right. I mean, thanks for that. I mean, it will help us. I thought there are no further questions. We had a question on how to track NDAs if it is violated. We had one more question in the task box. That would be our last one. Yeah.
You have to only ask them, you have to only sue them. At least you have something on paper on hand. You can send them notices if there is a violation. At least legally you have something on hold, right? So that's the only thing which will help you on the NDA angle.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Over to you, Gigi, please.
Yes, sir. So, shall we winding up the session, and also time is also. So, on behalf of Tech in IIT Palakkad, we extend our sincere gratitude to Ms. Subhadra ma'am for sharing valuable insights on legal essentials for startups. Your expertise has provided immense clarity on navigating the legal landscapes, empowering entrepreneurs to build resilient values. Thank you so much, ma'am. On this International Women's Day, we are delighted to have you as our speaker, ma'am. Thank you so much for this wonderful session, and thank you for your time, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you. So thank you for having me on this session, and I hope everybody is benefited out of it, and wishing each one of you all the very best. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Wishing all the women there happy Women's Day.
Happy Women's Day. Thank you to all our participants, and hope our startups find these insights truly helpful in their journey towards success. Thank you all. Thank you all for your time. Stay tuned for another insightful session coming soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you. See you all.
Thank you.